In this lesson, we'll explore communication in general, discussing the familiar so that we can better understand and demystify why any kind of communication is a challenge, whether we realize it or not. Humans love to communicate. We like knowing what others think, and we like transferring our own ideas to others, letting them know our wants and our feelings. That begins as early as infancy, so there is a tendency to think that communication comes naturally. After all, babies do cry to say they're hungry, wet, or tired. The problem is that sometimes babies aren't very effective in communicating exactly what the problem is because they aren't yet speaking the same language as their parents. So parents know something's wrong, but figuring it out is kind of trial and error. Well, what does this have to do with business writing? To understand business writing, we have to understand communication in general. In every type of communication, someone is trying to get a message across to someone else. Over the years, researchers have used different models or ideas to try to explain the process of communication. 3 of the most popular are the transmission model, the interaction model, and the transaction model. None of these fully capture everything that goes on when people exchange information, but they're all useful. What we can learn from these models is that there's usually a sender or communicator who wants to get an idea or thought from themselves to one or more people. The communicator often decides how to turn that thought into a message, but sometimes there are factors that alter the interpretation of the message as intended. So these communication models acknowledge that unintended communication sometimes takes place because of special contexts or situations. Let's look at a relatable example. Maybe this is a parent-teenager text exchange. The teenager uses the OMW abbreviation to mean on my way. But what if the parent assumes this means oh my word? Then she interprets his exclamation mark as yelling, and she's not a happy camper. Meanwhile, he reads her response and he's confused because didn't he just say he'd explain? Why is his mom being so unreasonable? This simple example illustrates what we sometimes call getting lost in translation. It's just one example of communication noise. In this case, the noise is semantic, because the communicators aren't on the same page about what a certain code, in this case OMW, means. But noise could also be environmental or physical noise that makes it difficult to hear what's being said, like static on a phone line. Noise could be psychological, like someone's emotional state. It could be physiological, maybe someone's speaking too fast and you can't decode what they're saying. And of course, we just looked at semantic noise. In fact, noise is really anything that interferes with the communication process. It could be hunger, tiredness, language, jargon, personal bias, and so on. Of course, we don't usually think about these things on a daily basis, not consciously anyway, but we do subconsciously make an effort to break down barriers to communication. For instance, if we're studying or reading, we try to reduce distractions like outside sounds and sights because we want to decode what the author wants to say. This is something we learn over time and which we use to different degrees based on how well we understand the challenges in each situation. So let's say we're setting up job interviews. We try to make applicants feel comfortable to reduce their anxiety and their physical discomfort so that they can communicate effectively with us. And there will be less barriers or noise to the exchange of thoughts. The extent to which we understand this process is directly related to how well we'll be able to get our messages across to others, even in writing. And it's also the key to how well we'll decode the ideas of others. Essentially, this is why some people are better at communicating than others. Whether they're aware of it or not, they're able to choose a method of encoding that the receiver will be able to decode easily, and a channel with as little noise or interference as possible, based on the message and situation. So while the desire to communicate is natural, the skill, art, and science of communication are learned.